Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. This is Patrick, and today we're presenting the release we just did, FormsViewer 7.4. I want to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. Got a couple quick questions for you before we get started. First of all, a lot of features in this release. It is not a major release; it's a minor release. We've had 4 releases this year. This is the 4th one, and we got a quick question here at the beginning. Do you have forms with attachments? One of the changes we made, feature enhancements, is 4-file attachments, and we'll go over that in a second. Looks like all of you do. Thank you very much for that. And then we'll close that poll, and we'll do the next one here, which is, are you interested in our free Qdabra Forms training? And this is another silly, stupid question here at the beginning just to get engagement, but we do have free training coming up in 2 weeks. Actually, it's 2 weeks from last Tuesday, so it's less than 2 weeks now. And we hope you can make it. If you've already registered, thank you very much. We do cap the class size at 15 people, and I think we're around 10 right now, so we've still got a few spots left. So once again, welcome to our webinar. Really happy to be presenting 7.4 release of FormsViewer. This has been a busy year for us. We've had 4 releases, and you can see here at the end of this timeline some of the features that we've highlighted for this year, including FormsDesigner 1.0, which we released in May. We've had 24 minor releases since we started this journey in 2014, 8 years ago. So at this point, FormsViewer is fairly mature. FormsDesigner is in its 1.0 release. We hope to get a 2.0 out next year. We're going to be making changes to it as we go. Every FormsViewer minor release includes FormsDesigner now, and therefore changes to FormsDesigner. So we've actually got updates on FormsDesigner today as well. If you got questions, we have a place where you can ask them. You can just go into the questions in the webinar, go to webinar screen and ask a question there, and we'll get to those in a second. A lot to go over today. Highlights for this release, and if you're using FormsViewer, as many of you no doubt are, you can actually go into the your FormsViewer instance, and let's go back to main here. So when you launch the FormsViewer app from your site, you'll get this main screen, and you'll see here that there are a lot of things, a lot of features here. We normally go to manage templates to look at all the forms, upload the new ones, and so forth. But as you can see at the bottom here, we've got the release date, which was yesterday. And we also have this release notes here, which details all the changes we've made, including the previous versions this year. So that's one place to go if you're interested. It's live on the public instance. If you have on-prem and you have it, we'll be upgrading on-prem instances with you. We'll be actually, I think we have. And I want to welcome Jimmy Risch, who's the guy behind all this good work. Jimmy, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
So Jimmy, what's the status on? We're gonna upload the on-prem bits to InfoPath Dev so people can download it on demand, right?
Yeah, we will be doing that. We haven't done that yet, but I think around early next week it should be available.
Wonderful, and we'll send out a link to everyone as part of the newsletter for this webinar today on Monday or Tuesday with the link if we have it by then. If not, it'll be the following week in the training class. And we're obviously available to help you do the upgrade. Jimmy, how long would you say it would take to update on-prem instances?
Usually takes about 30 minutes or less.
Sweet. So yeah, just send us. We're quite swamped right now with Q4 work. We've got new customers with migration projects that we're helping, and we'll definitely get to you in priority orders. So the sooner you get that request into us, the better. But you can also download it and do it on your own in a week or so. A lot of text here. I'm just going to skip to the demo, and we'll show you these features. In fact, the demo form will be part of the package that we send you. The demo form, if I can find it here. I'm just going to refresh this. So the demo form, and I want to thank Abel Clemente, our Forms Design Wizard, and Edgardo Cruz, who's our new hire, for creating this form today. This form basically it reviews, or it's an overview of all the major updates to this in this minor release. So you've got the first one here, which is environment variables. And what are environment variables? This is a new feature, first of all, And this feature allows you to store data in a server. So in other words, if you have a URL for a web service, you can store that in your cloud. And then if you have a dev and a prod instance, so think of these FB icons down below as dev and prod, they can access that variable. So the variable can change based on whether they're on dev or prod. So we're going to just show you this feature here. If we go back to our main page here, we've got this ability to manage those environment variables. And you can see here we've added a few of these variables for testing. So you can add them, and then you can access them. And this is useful if you have like a DBXL instance. In our case, DBXL is our web service that we'll be talking about in a few slides here. DBXL actually allows you to quickly integrate with SQL, but it also allows you to scale your solutions, do other things like send notifications, PDF emails. There's a lot of features we built into this accelerator. This was our first accelerator that we built about 15 years ago. And we have a lot of customers using DBXL to reduce the maintenance cost of their solutions, make it faster to deploy. And I'll talk a little more about that in a second. I just want to show you this feature, though, first. And that this feature is, so basically what you're going to do is, and there's some instructions in here, but you're going to add your new feature, and then you can also add a site environment variable. Jimmy, what's the difference between global and site?
The global ones are available on all sites. So if you're in SharePoint or SharePoint Online, they're available on all of your sites. The site ones are just one site. So if you want something that applies everywhere, you put them in the global.
Great. So let's just try one real quick here. I think we had, I need to remember what we had here, but let's try one. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to add this QROW command called get environment variable to your form, and then you'll specify the doc type, I guess. Actually, in this case, we'll specify the key, which is the variable. Is that right, Jimmy? I'm just trying to, why don't you talk to this here? And I feel like I'm not giving it justice, but let's try this DBXL URL here. Let's see if they put this in here. And so there's the variable. We just retrieved it. And we can change it. I don't know if I really want to change it, but let's actually see if we can create a new one. I was assuming that it doesn't matter what the variable is.
That's not gonna create a new one.
Okay, so it's just going to use existing ones. We don't have the ability to create new ones. Is that right?
You can go to the manage variables page and create a new one.
Okay, let's do that. So we'll go in here and we'll say demo test, save this. I'm hoping this is the right site. I think it is actually, but let's.
And you'll need to refresh the form because they're basically pulled in during loading time.
Okay. Thanks everyone for bearing with me here. Let's see if we have that variable, and there it is. So you can see how that works quite easily. Very easy to add, and if you have the logic in your form on load, then it will retrieve all the variables, I guess, with the doc type there. So it's associated with the doc type, right?
It's associated with the site or globally.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. That's the first demo feature that we've got. Very useful when you have like a web service that you want to keep the same between your dev and test environments, or when you want to switch it out, you can actually have two different versions and then just have the form query the right version, depending on whether it's the dev site or the production site. So for maintenance and migration, I'd say that's the main value add. Jimmy, would you add to that? Is there anything else that we should underline or highlight in terms of the value?
Yep. So basically anything that you want to share between multiple forms, like an API key or some setting. It's really useful for that because you don't have, if the value needs to change, you don't have to go and modify all your form templates. You can just update it in that page and all your forms are ready to go.
Yeah, API key is a great one. I'm glad you mentioned that because we did a webinar on multiple language support using the Google Natural Language API several months ago, and we're going to probably be revising that next year. We've got customers using it. In fact, I know one of the customers on the call. I want to do a shout out to Andy Swarren, who is using this feature. So Andy, this would be a great place to store your API key and not have to worry about coding it into all the forms. And I don't think we've done that with the migration project that we're helping you on, but that would be something where we can add to it to make the maintenance easier. Great. So let's talk about the next feature. So, and I want to thank Andy also for this feature because as part of Andy's project, we decided to finally implement multiple selection list box. It's not the most frequently used control in InfoPath, but it is something that one of the remaining ones that we haven't done. The other one would be the other one is like the combo list box, or I forget. There's one more that we haven't done yet, Jimmy. Is it the
yeah, combo box?
Combo box. Okay. So, but here's the multiple selection list box, and typically you've got the benefit of this is that you can quickly select multiple items without having to use a drop down. So it's less user clicks, which is good. And then you can also add a manual entry. What starts with D? Dorian? How do you spell Dorian? Is it U or is it O? I forget.
Durian?
Yeah,
like that.
Okay. So we'll add Durian here as our D. Obviously not in alphabetical order, but I thought it was. I didn't see the oranges there. And you can see how that gets added. Removing it, it removes it. So this is a really great to see this new feature here. And once again, if you've got multiple selection list box in InfoPath, it'll just carry over. But you will have to add this add choice section here. And it's really easy to do that. You just add a text box and you have a button. And this button is going to call the QRules command insert to insert it into that list that you have. You could also have a list in the background and add it here. And you can see that now I can actually, yeah, I guess it's the same way in this case too, but you can see how we've got this repeating section that's displaying the values that are being pulled into that multiple selection list box. Any questions on that? Hit the question area and we'll look at those in a second. The other change here for the forms is the file attachment. We had a customer that using a lot of file attachments and they have an approval process. So typically when you have an approval process and you want to lock down the form at some point when it's approved, right? Well, you don't want them to be able to actually add or download the attachment or edit it. Actually, you don't want them to upload a new attachment after it's been approved and locked down. So let's see how this works. So I'm just going to add a random file from my desktop here. It can be anything, obviously. So we'll just add an image file. And so you can see here, the top one allows us to remove, download, replace, and cancel. But the bottom one does not. And that's because what it does is it automatically downloads it, which is what you want if it's read-only. So they can have a reference copy on their local machine. But it doesn't allow them to have that pop up and potentially change the attachment. So anything else to add to that feature, Jimmy? Oh, there's one.
I think that's
there's one thing to add, and that is if you already have a multiple selection list box in your form and you've gone into properties and you have actually said, don't allow people to upload it. There's currently a problem with that, right? You have to actually go in there and set it again. I'm trying to remember what the issue is.
Yeah. So, these detachment controls by default they allow attaching and removing files, but some people, for whatever reason, may have unchecked that box, and up until now they were able to attach files because we didn't support turning that feature off. But now that it's off, if you are one of those people who did that, then you might have a problem. So you might need to check any of your forms that are using it and just make sure they're working as expected, and if not, just go into the properties and check that.
But the default is to have it on. So most people won't see this unless they've manually gone in and actually deselected it, right?
That's right.
Okay. We've fixed the validation for radio buttons, and I believe that the way to demo this is to basically enable auto validation. You can see here now we've got the red dashed border around these choices. So kind of not really super interesting to demo here, but we've actually for choice boxes for radio buttons and in this case, is it just radio buttons, or is there there's checkboxes too, right? Like if you have a checkbox, it's the same, right, Jim?
Yep, we support checkboxes. So basically the issue here was that those red dashes around the radios weren't showing correctly. I think there may have been a change in browser behavior. They were showing as like a flat little line. So now they look good again. And
yeah, that's right. So it was a regression or a change in the browser that prompted us to fix that, right?
It seems to be, because I know they were working at one point and we hadn't changed that functionality.
Here's the one. Now let's talk about this one. This checkbox toggle is actually a little bit of a corner case. Do you want to talk about this real quick?
Yeah, so we discovered an issue. I don't think it's new, but probably had gone unlooked until now, where if you had a checkbox where one of either the checked or the unchecked option was a blank value, you couldn't toggle it into that value. It would just stay in the state it was in, no matter how many times you clicked. So now that should be working nicely.
Great. Awesome. Okay, and then for list forms, this is a little more involved demo here. We've got a separate demo form that opens up. We'll send this also with the package later today. And this form, before we were concatenating these multiple choice items into the list. And what's the command that we use with submit to SharePoint list, right?
No, it's a built-in feature in list form.
Okay, so if I query this list, so if we look at the list, I think I have it right here. The list has these multiple choice column in it, and you can see at the very bottom here, I've got. I'm just going to delete this. Actually, what I'll do is I can edit it in SharePoint. Can I do this here? Let me see if I can do this. Edit. And let's see if I can remove one of these. Okay. Well. Okay, so I'll remove choice 2. And we'll go back and we'll see if it updates. I didn't do it right. Tricky Microsoft UI. Okay, so done. Save. Okay, now did it work? Yes. Okay, now if we go back to the form and query this guy, you'll see it pulls in that item there, and we can add a new item. Let's just add all of these. And this is kind of a silly demo because we only have 3 options, but now when we submit, we come back to the list and refresh it. You'll see that we have these all 3 items now. Jimmy, any other comments here?
Yeah, so basically we hadn't had support for submitting to these kind of columns correctly, and if you did try to do that, it would just show all the values concatenated together instead of a separate values. So now they're showing up separately, which is good.
Great. So that's for list forms only, right?
Yeah, it's a list form feature.
Great. And then finally, we've got a couple of FormsDesigner changes. And the first thing to point out, here's the form with the scrolling regions. And you can see that we now support scrolling regions in the designer. And I'll let Jimmy talk more to this because he's the one who implemented this feature along with all the other ones. But what's the main takeaway here, Jimmy?
Yeah, so we basically had an issue in the designer where if you had a scrolling region, you opened the form and resaved it, the content didn't save out correctly, which is, of course, we don't want to have that happen. So we discovered this issue, and not only did we fix that problem, but now the designer also displays the scrolling regions and their content, so you can go in there and modify the content. Previously, it was just showing a little icon that said unsupported control type, so a lot better support for that now.
Awesome. Questions for us. We're going to quickly talk about DBXL here. We haven't done a DBXL webinar in a couple weeks. Hillary actually announced DBXL, the latest version. I believe this is 3.4, maybe it's 3.5, a couple weeks ago. She had a webinar on that. You can find it on our YouTube channel. And DBXL is really our first major accelerator. You know, we started developing solutions, for Microsoft back in 2004, and quickly realized that there were limits around how much data you could store in SharePoint, the 5,000 limit. And so what we did was we thought, well, we really need to build these scalable solutions for our customer, which at the time was Microsoft. And so we built this web service, which allows you to store data in SQL, which is very scalable. And I've got a very anxious feline in the background here, which is causing some commotion. I hope that's not a big audio issue. Jimmy, can you hear that? I'm going to have to let her in, maybe.
I do hear some banging.
Okay. So I'm going to, give me just 1 second here. Jimmy, can you actually I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I'm just going to let the cat in so you don't have the banging. Crazy working at home lifestyle here. Okay, so basically the main value prop for DBXL is once again the scalability. And scalability means not just storage, but it also means query, and query performance with the solution in SQL is a lot better because the SOAP protocol that we use is a lot less. There's a lot less stuff going on than there is in the SharePoint stack. If you've got a large set of data that's already in SQL, you need some way to query it, and that's another way you can do that is with this generic web service. The key thing about DBXL is it's generic, so it allows you to store all of your data, regardless of the form template, in the database, and just use one web service to query. And if you got questions on this or you're interested in this, let us know. We have a lot of customers who are using it. We've added features over the years. One of the features is this ability to generate PDFs and send them to people, rendering an email, which is a nice feature when you compare it to something like Power Automate, because it allows for WYSIWYG design of the email envelope versus going to Power Automate and having the HTML wizard. And in addition, it's synchronous or relatively synchronous versus Power Automate, which can be asynchronous. So that's a quick DBXL. We've got our training coming up here in a week and a couple days. A lot of new content. So we've got content on basically all the stuff we've done this year since our last training, which was in May. So a lot of get environment variables, for example, is on day 3, but a lot of new content. And then we got some sort of evergreen content here on day 1. But most of the labs, I'd say 80% of them are new. So if you can make it, just go to our website and you can click on education and you can register for that. Any questions for us? I don't have a question slide. I'm sorry about that. But do we have any questions or comments? And Jimmy, this is live on the public instance. And anything else to add here in terms of things to watch out for? I think we had. Do we have any other regressions that we should comment on at the end here?
Yeah, so we did discover an issue. I think it was 2 days, about 24 hours ago, where if you have a text box with a placeholder, currently the placeholder text is actually showing in the text box as text rather than just in the background. We have fixed that in our dev branch, and we're going to be pushing out a fix for that probably tomorrow. So if you're experiencing that, just know that it will be fixed very soon. Great. So that release note then will go from November 16th to November 18th, I'm guessing. Yep, thereabouts. And Andy had one comment. I think it looks great. You should help us wrap up our project. Thanks, Andy, for that comment. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, everyone, for your time this morning, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
We have, I don't think we have a webinar next week. We've got the training the following week, but we'll have a couple webinars in December, and hope you can make it then. If not, don't forget the training, and have a great day. Stay warm. Thanks again, Jimmy. Way to go.
Thank you.